Have you ever noticed on your best days, you have your best relationships with people? And on your worst days, you have your worst relationships. And sometimes it seems like the news only focuses on the bad. Have you ever turned on the 5 o'clock news and negative story after negative story, you get defeated in mind, body, and spirit? Do you see only the differences in our world today and think, it's impossible? I used to get disheartened by this dog-eat-dog world of ours until one night, a cat came into my life. It all began on a Tuesday at 10 p.m., October 24th, 2004. It was cold, dark, and rainy. Inside my warm house, I was escorting my girlfriend to the front door, like the gentleman that I am, when all of a sudden we heard cries. Meow! Meow! I peeked out the window, and there, smack dab, in the middle of my front door, was a cat. He had gray fur and black tiger stripes. I opened the door. The cat scampered about 15 feet away. While having cats my whole life, I fancied myself a cat whisperer. So I worked my magic and went a little something like this. Here, kitty, 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 kitty. The cat came. I scooped him up and I brought him inside the warm house. That night, I posted cat found flyers all around town, but nobody claimed him. So I kept him. Now the cat, who was about 2 years old, had nice big eyes, all of his claws. I called him Mr. T. No, not the Mr. T who says, "I pity the fool." The T stood for tiger because of his black tiger stripes. I don't know why Mr. T came to my door that night, or why he came to me when I called him. Maybe my cat whispering is that good. Or maybe, for that poor kitty on that night, the unknown was better than the known. That poor cat, he looked hungry, lost, and scared. And sometimes in life, you have no choice but to take a leap of faith. That becomes a special moment where an opportunity for trust can begin. Now I know, you may not be a cat person, but Mr. T was different. Even my anti-cat friends liked Mr. T. They said he was like a dog. And Mr. T always came when I called him. He was a nice boy. There was Mr. T and me for a while. I had many nicknames for him. T, Tizo, Son. I loved spending time with the little guy. I'd hold him. I'd pet him. He'd purr. I'd play with him and his cat toys. And every morning, he'd wake me up on time, like a furry alarm clock with 4 legs and a tail. We were pals. But a year later, I adopted 2 new cats, Punky and Susie, that my mom had rescued. My girlfriend, Mandy, became my wife, and she brought her cat, Butterscotch, on board. Our house was fuller. Well, Mr. T loved spending time with his new cat friends. They'd sleep together, play together, and their favorite activity, looking out the window together. And when they were playing with each other nice and romping around the house, my wife Mandy would gush. Stare at the cats, they're like happy little spirits, zooming around our house. Zoom, zoom. And Mr. T was the spirit of loyalty. Every day I came home, he was there at the door. I'd open that front door. Hey, Tizo. Hey, Mr. T. Hey, son. And I'd pet him. I missed your furry face. And he'd go, meow. As if to say, I missed your furry face too. And he was there every day. He was different. And one day I was in the kitchen talking to my wife, Mandy, and I said, Mandy, you know how Mr. T is always at the front door to greet you when you come home? And she said, Garrett, Mr. T is never at that front door to greet me. He only does that for you. I thought, wow, that little cat, he was that mindful. He did that just for me. Mr. T was different. One night, I was in my bathtub. Sorry to put that image into your head. But I was in the tub, and Mr. T jumped up on the bath ledge. No biggie. But then, he climbed down onto my arm, began to climb down on me. I got really still. I thought, there is no way this is going to end well for either of us. He has all his claws. But soon, he plopped his furry little body onto my wet chest, surrounded by all that water. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think it was possible. So I called out to my wife, Mandy, carefully, Mandy. And when she came in, she couldn't believe her eyes. Well, Mr. T did this quite often. So often that my wife, Mandy, would often complain, Garrett, I don't know who clogs that tub drain worse, you or the cat. It was me. But a cat that will climb onto you when you're in the tub, surrounded by all that water, said one thing. He trusted me. And he had all his claws. So I trusted him too. The years rolled by. In the fall of 2014, Mr. T turned 12. And one night, my wife noticed that Mr. T his husky body was looking slimmer. So the next morning, she drove him to the vet. He was diabetes. So we put Mr. T on a cat food diet, special cat food, and got him some insulin. And he was doing good. And then 7 months later, one day in April of 2015, he wasn't himself. He wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking. Well, I had to go in that morning. I work for my father. He never lets me take time off. We have daily deadlines. So Mandy, she took Mr. T to the vet and dropped him off before school. That morning at work, I got a call. Mr. Gray, Mr. T is not doing well. He's severely dehydrated. We suspect it's his kidneys. We don't think he'll live past noon. When I got off the phone, my father was passing by and he asked in his gruff voice, how's your kitty? And I said, Dad. He said, T won't live past noon. And then, my work first, no nonsense, taskmaster of a father said something to me that I'll never forget. Garrett, you can go say goodbye. I left. When I got to that vet's, I saw Mr. T in a cage with tubes. He looked bad. I went up to the cage. I opened the door. Hey, Tizo. Hey, Mr. T. Hey, son. I pet him. After a long and tearful goodbye, I had to get back to work. And I waited. Soon, noon became 1. And 1 became 2. 2 became 3. That's 4. I got the call. Mr. Gray, Mr. T is fine. He's made a turnaround. He's drinking, he's eating, his kidneys are fine. But we'd like to keep him for a couple nights for observation. Well, I hung up the phone. I called my wife, Mandy, to tell her the news. And she said, Garrett, it's a miracle. I said, yeah, can you believe my dad let me out of work? That was the first miracle. The second was my pal, Mr. T, was alive. You know, I visit that little kitty at the vet every night after work until he came home that Thursday. When Mr. T was back home that Thursday, it was different. He looked weak and frail. But I held him. I pet him. And I laid with him for a couple hours. But I had to get back to work. I had those deadlines. So past 1 a.m., I came home, I opened that door, I turned on the light. I saw Mr. T on the easy chair, almost lifeless, head up, eyes staring out into space. Like he was there, but he wasn't. Mandy and I rushed him to the emergency vet, but it was too late. My pal, loyal friend, Mr. T died in that lobby on that Friday at 2 a.m. If you've ever lost a pet, friend you care about, that you treat like family, can tear your heart to pieces. A year and a half after Mr. T's mind and furry little body are long gone, his big spirit still remains in my heart. And it always will. I'll always celebrate the life of Mr. T because he was different. I mean, how many cats do you know that are loyal, like a dog? That like taking baths with people and are the star of a TED Talk. Celebrate the differences. I know, Mr. T was just a cat. But if a human being could have that type of connection with something so different as another species, I ask you, what's possible? What's possible with how we connect with each other, our fellow human beings? With how we relate to each other, with how we treat each other, especially those who are different. Turn off that 5 o'clock news. Turn on your heart. I'm not asking you to adopt a cat or a person. But I am urging you to adopt the cool cat persona of my pal, Mr. T. And that's C-A-T, cat. The C stands for contact. And by contact, I mean being physically present and available. Having regular contact with those in your life. Mr. T, the cat, was always around. He was near me. He was with me. He was on me. Even in the tub. Being physically present in one's life, being close at hand, can never be overstated. Because when you're in the presence of another person, you're sharing the most precious commodity of them all, your time. A stands for attitude. It's not enough to be physically present. You must have a mindful attitude as well. If you're constantly around those people who are totally distracted by their smartphone, you know what I'm talking about. Well, Mr. T, the cat, would stop whatever he was doing, even looking out the window. The cat equivalent of the smartphone, just to greet me at that door every day. And that was cat speak for hello. I missed you. I care about you. Sometimes we take every day for granted. Before he died, every day I came through that door, he would never miss me. Now that he's gone, Every day I come through that door, I always miss him. Take a moment to disengage from the distractions in your life. Mindfully engage others and do the little things that tell them you care. The T stands for trust. It's easy to say, but hard to do. Trust is risky business. There's no guarantees. There was no guarantee when Mr. T climbed onto me in that tub, he wouldn't get submerged in all that water. And there was no guarantee his claws wouldn't eviscerate my bare skin when he did. When you trust someone fully, you give up a little power, a little control. But with mutual trust comes an opportunity for something even more powerful. With mutual trust, there's cooperation and collaboration, not competition. C-A-T. Cat. Spend some quality cat time with those in your life. I don't know why Mr. T came to my door that night. I'm just glad he did. My wife Mandy once wisely observed, "You know, Garrett, outside of string, there are two things that always attract a cat. A closed door and an open door." And she's right, it never fails. Call it the law of attraction. Call it animal attraction. Call it life. Because life will come to your door whether you're open to receive it or not. Leave your biases at the door and adopt the cool cat persona of my pal, the late great Mr. T. By making contact, by having a mindful attitude, by trusting others. Like Mr. T, you may be different. But make no mistake about it, the biggest difference is the one you can make in each other's lives, in mind, body, and spirit. And it all begins by opening the door to your heart. Spend that quality cat time. Better relationships lead to better days. I know you may not be a cat person. Heck, you may not be a people person. But that's no excuse to let our world go to the dogs.